Welcome to the JD Bunkis podcast. Let's be real. It's actually starting to get a little exhausting. It has to be for almost all of us. I'm sure there are some exceptions. If you bought a ticket tonight and you're heading down to watch the Leafs and the Golden Knights, and you had this one circled on the schedule, you bought it, you paid the surge ticket pricing, I bet you're pumped up. And you should be pumped up, regardless of how you feel. But this has become talk to death. These Marner games are too close together. Let's just, again, be real. And we've had to basically endure a week plus of very similar conversations. Everybody's gotten to chime in. Everybody's got to say their piece. And I think it's sapped a little bit of the juice from this. What is supposed to kind of be just an easy, fun sports story has turned into something more. And I'll admit it, like, maybe this is just me. Maybe this is just me personally. The way that I'm feeling as someone who tries to talk about the things that are most resonating within the market. What is happening in sports? I like to try to put the finger on the dial and go whole hog on that. But it's gotten to the point now where there's been so much discourse and there are so many voices where it feels talk to death. It feels old hat. And frankly, some of it feels petty. When I'm getting people sending me messages or when I'm seeing some of the stuff online, because I'm looking at it, I want to know what the pulse is of this story. The Marner return to Toronto on the coldest day, I guess, ever in the city. There's no way it's colder than when we had the All-Star game here. Like, that was actually, you stepped outside and it was 1 second before you felt freezing cold no matter what you were wearing. Either way, everybody be safe tonight and limit your exposure, I guess. I have seen a lot of people going, hey, this feels targeted. This feels too personal. This feels too petty. This feels too angry. And for the most part, I actually don't think it really is. I think most people are normal and that most people are just pissed off that a star player left their favorite team under acrimonious circumstances. Like, it's just really not that complicated, but there's so many voices here. And so, again, everybody gets a take. And now we're living the world with social media where literally everybody gets a take. And it's become overly complicated. And we just don't really need to complicate this to that big of a degree. I got Kris Versteeg coming up here. But frankly, I've seen a lot of this take from current players and former players, which is you shouldn't boo. It's why I was annoyed with the Joe Woll comments yesterday. Or 2 days ago, sorry. Where he's like, hockey's a game of respect. It's like, relax, man. Don't try to police how the fans should be. And honestly, this is a spot where just butt out of it. I've seen a lot of former players and coaches and hockey people mention how he should be getting respect. He should be getting cheered. Bruce Boudreau said that he should get the same reception that John Taves got. Okay. Seems a little strong. No offense. This isn't really for you. This is for people who pay for their seats. This is for people who work a 9 to 5 and who live and die with a sweater because they were born into it or they fell in love with a player when they were a kid. And when a player leaves and it's with bitter circumstances, you're not supposed to love that player. You're not supposed to be celebrating that player. You can if you want to. This, again, not complicated, but it's turned into this thing where it's like Toronto fans. Oh, here's another example of how Toronto fans are toxic. They're considering booing Mitch Marner. Like, yeah, sports are fun, okay? Sports are supposed to not be overly serious. Mitch Marner's making tens of millions of dollars. He is a very rich guy. And yeah, we learned and we have learned that he's an overly sensitive fella. So this stuff probably gets to him more than it does for other players. But this is not a think piece issue. We don't need a million think pieces on it. We don't need this to be broken down into some way that is, what is the enduring effect? This is not that big of a deal. It's a player who a lot of people don't like because they didn't like the way that he left, period. A lot of people didn't want him back, myself included, thought it was time for a change. And I have said this over and over again. I commend Mitch Marner for being the bigger person in terms of realizing that it was over here. What I don't commend him for is having his mind on Las Vegas before his contract was over with the Leafs. I think it's human nature. I think that all of us think about our future and where we're going to be. But when you're a professional hockey player and you're getting $11 million and your team is in a Stanley Cup contention window, it's harder to swallow that when the guy ends up leaving to the destination that everybody thought he was going to a year before. It's not great when you kick the fans on the way out, which is what he did, period. He tried to propagate and continue the look that Maple Leaf fans in some way are worse than other fans in the NHL, when the reality is there's just more of us than there are the rest of you, period. There's no difference. There's no added layer of toxicity. Is there more media here? For sure. Do people provide awful opinions? I do it all the time. Once a week, baby, at least there's one in there that is horrific. But this isn't special. This isn't unique. This is just what happens in sports. And because the coverage is blown out and because it's a huge player, people are making it into a bigger deal than it is. So if you want to go down to the game tonight and you want to boo, good on you. You should do that. That's normal. If you want to go down there and you really believe that cheering and applauding is the move for this guy, given what we know, fine. I don't agree with it. It's not what I would do if I was sitting in the seats. But the idea that this is some kind of a special circumstance, or that, my God, it really needs to be broken down into boo or not boo, and that it's a Toronto issue or it's a Marner, it's reached a fever pitch of I can't even take it anymore. I'm almost glad it's over with. I'm excited for the game tonight. I can't wait to see how the Leafs play. I can't wait to see how the crowd reacts and what it's like down there, because, Leaf fans, which is it? Because they get accused of being a library all the time. Hey, it's a library in there. It's a library in there. Oh, the yacht club, the yacht club. And then there's a game where there might be some heat around it and people go, how disrespectful it would be. Hockey's a game of respect. Please show respect. Which is it? Pick a lane. Kris Versteeg, two-time Stanley Cup champion, creator of the Clever app. He joins me now. What's up, buddy? How we doing?
Bruce Boudreau tried to compare it to Jonathan Toews.
Said he should get a same or similar reception. Yeah. You think so? You were there. You were at John Toews' reception.
I don't want to say what's in my heart about that comment. It's insane that a former coach would make that comparison about the two players. And Mitch, to me, was a great Leaf. He's obviously one of the all-time scorers. He's coming back to a place that he gave a lot to, right? Obviously, they never won. But for anyone really to tell a fan who's a paying fan what to do or how to feel or how to interact with the player that left is kind of insane, especially a coach. And I love Bruce. I mean, he was a great coach. Never coached me, but obviously
seems like a great guy. It's just that it was
great.
The most egregious example, so it just popped off the top of my head.
It's pretty egregious. Like,
Yeah.
I was in the building with Jonathan Toews, played him, and so that's those type of comparisons can't be made. I mean, unless Mitch had won here and brought the Stanley Cup back even multiple times. I mean, you're talking about like an all-time winning hockey player versus a guy obviously who left. So for me though, like thinking about Mitch and his time here, and that team wasn't making the playoffs a lot. Obviously, they had their time in 2013. They lost. And then he comes in and Matthews comes in and all these young guys come in and they're supposed to take this team to the very end, which they didn't. Yeah, it really is up to the fans on how they're going to interact with him today. And I'm excited to see it. I'm
Same.
excited to see how it goes down.
Okay, so I feel like the players are in a bit of an unfair position here in the sense that these two games were very close together, right? So you head to Vegas, and every reporter is asking you questions about Mitch Marner. Hey, how's it going to feel playing Mitch? How's it going to feel playing Mitch? And like his issues are with this team and the city more than they are with his former teammates, right? Like I've heard
Totally.
some things, I'm sure you have too, in terms of some guys loving him. I think he was overall a fairly popular player in the dressing room. I don't think that he was everybody's cup of tea, but that's any workplace ever, right? So, go to a place where a person is universally beloved. I have one at Sportsnet. His name's Ben Nicholson Smith. That's it. We got one guy here that everybody loves and nobody has ever talked trash about. It's a rarity for that to happen. So the idea when someone's like, oh, well, actually, this guy didn't like him or that guy, I'm like, okay, whatever. That doesn't mean anything. Overall, I don't think his teammates had an issue with him. And his teammates are
No,
not
he's been
ones.
there. He was there for such a long time,
Exactly.
man. And like, there's no chance his teammates didn't like him.
Right.
He right? Like
So,
he was a productive player. He was an assistant I
yep.
think he was an assistant, right? Was he not?
Yeah, he was. He wore an A.
Yeah, he
He
wore
wore
an
an
A.
A. Yeah, he wore a
Yeah.
letter.
Like there's just no chance that you could be hated by all your
No.
teammates, even if you're that good consistently year after year, heading into contract negotiations, getting that much money. He was, he's a player that would have been liked by his teammates or loved by some. Like you said, you're not always going to be loved by all your teammates.
Hmm.
But this is a guy coming back. For me, like I said, the most exciting part about me today is to see how the fans react, right?
Hmm.
Let the fans show their passion. Let a fan base that generally doesn't take it over the top see what they do. For me, it's all about what are the fans going to do? Yeah, and I don't know what they do.
I don't know
I
either.
hope I hope you kind of get multiple receptions. I hope he gets cheered and loved and kind of gets his appreciation. And then at times you kind of hope that he does get booed just to see if there is some sort of fight inside the building from the fan base to try to get their team to get a win who's in a playoff hunt,
Buddy,
you know?
how many times have you texted me? It's too quiet in here. There's too many people on their
Oh,
butts. There's too many people on there not standing up. They got to give the crowd's got to give them energy. And this is where I was going with this, which is like if I'm a player and I'm on the team, okay? Um, I like Mitch Marner. I'm not hoping for anything horrible to happen to him, right? Like I'm not hoping for
no.
it to be too personal or like I can understand and relate to some of the difficulty, right, of him being in the building or worrying about where his family's going to sit. They'll probably be in a suite, so who cares? But an interaction with a fan, like that's going to be on your mind, and nobody wants any of that to happen. But if I was on the team and I had a fan base that was rooting for me, living and dying with me, and I'm in a playoff chase and I'm playing a hyper intense game. I want my crowd to have my back, to be booing Mitch Marner. I want my crowd to be going nuts in this game and feeling like this is a playoff game. So the idea that these guys are sitting there being like, I hope he gets like Wool had a horrible quote the other day. He said, hockey's a game of respect. I hope fans pay their respect. He doesn't deserve to be booed or something along those lines. And I went, that can't be the line of thinking with your team. As a player, the line of thinking has to be, hey, buddy, this is all fun and games, and you're getting it tonight. And I
Yeah,
can't
you're
wait to hear the crowd give it to you tonight.
100%. And that's like I've played against a lot of my buddies that have returned and stuff like that. And obviously they're owed their dues, right? Like these video tributes have gotten out of hand for who they
Yeah.
get, like and which guys get them. Mitch deserves one. He deserves a video tribute, I think, right?
Yeah.
Coming back based on what he's done. So you give him his flowers there, but at the end of the day, hockey is war. Hockey's about respect in a sense, but you're going out there to smash a guy through the glass,
Mhm.
friend or no friend. I remember playing Devin Setaguchi. He was my best friend since we were 5 years old. We were playing in the Western Conference Finals. We wouldn't talk to each other. When I saw him on the ice, I was going to cross check him as hard as I could. He was going to cross check me as hard as he could.
Mm.
He was going to run me through the glass. And that was like literally my best friend, and thinking back on all the greats that, have kind of had these moments, obviously, is Chris Pronger and Mitch Marner on the same level?
In terms
Like
of
who's
not
as
liked in Edmonton, Chris Pronger?
well, kind of where I'm going with it,
Yeah.
right? On terms of greatness. Like you talk about when Pronger came back to Edmonton,
Well, Pronger's a
right?
way greater player than Marner,
That
though.
there that's kind of where I'm going with it,
Yeah.
right? And he got booed,
Yeah.
right?
And he took his team to a
He
cup final.
Yeah, and he took his team to a cup final
Yeah.
and he got torched. And I remember listening to Chris kind of talk about it, and he's just like, that's hockey.
Yeah.
I loved it. He goes, I knew I was coming back into the den after all this, and I was gonna get booed, and I was gonna bring everything I got, and I hope Mitch feels the same way, like, in a sense, like,
Mm.
yeah, I deserve to get cheered. Obviously, it's not great on the way out, and I expect to get booed, and hopefully on Mitch's side, it fuels him to play well. And
Mm.
and that's kind of about what it takes to be great and what it takes to be a competitor, right? You kind of want that, I would assume. If I was Mitch, that's kind of, I've given so much, but it ended with a little bit of animosity. I deep down, if I was Mitch, would kind of want a bit of booze to fuel me to play better. But thinking about Chris Pronger and when he went back and what his reception was, and you know what I mean? It's just like there's great players that leave on crappy terms and they're going to get it. And you're going to see if they rise to the occasion as well. And that's kind of what I'm interested in too.
I definitely would love, and I hope, and I actually believe Mitch Marner wants to stick it to the Maple Leafs tonight. Like that
100%.
he would
Oh,
he's dying to go into
he's a
this building,
competitor.
yeah, and
He,
score a couple of big goals, and that the Leafs rise to the occasion and have to match his intensity, or that he has to match theirs, whichever way you want to put it. I will say this. You better hope you don't run into Chris Pronger anytime soon, because I know he would take this personally that you made the comparison between them as players. He's going,
No,
well,
I wasn't making
I
no, I
know.
was kinda, like, asking you about,
Yeah,
like, the level of greatness
for
and
sure.
if they deserve it and what they've done for their previous team. Because
Yeah.
Chris talked about this on Sportsnet, and I think it was with you.
Mm.
I can't remember who it was with, but I remember him talking about it and kinda coming from his perspective, right? After taking a team to a
Yeah.
championship, after a bit of animosity leaving, right? Wanting to leave and go somewhere else and all this, and then coming back to Edmonton. He talked about that whole thing, and I thought it was really fascinating. And just in comparison, like you're talking about people saying they can't boo Mitch.
Yeah.
Well, why could they boo Pronger, but they can't boo Mitch?
Yeah, of
You know what I mean?
course. Of course they can. And they honestly, in my opinion, should. Because that's just what being a fan is. You root for your team, you don't root for the player. You don't want
No.
it to be personal, but that's not what booing is. This is not some added layer of toxicity that people try to throw on to Maple Leaf fans. Like you just said, it happened at Edmonton, it happens in other places. I think the difference is,
If this was Chicago
yeah,
and we didn't win it with all that, or if that was imagine Montreal and you come back, there would be no even people talking about if you're getting booed. You're
of
just coming
course.
in, no, or Philadelphia, you're getting cooked.
That's what I'm saying about this getting overly complicated, where it's like these think pieces that people are trying to put
Yeah.
out there. Like, well, taboo or not, it's just a guy left under bad circumstances and didn't win with the team. And on his way out, he hit the fans in their softest of spots, which is they get blamed for being a part of why this team hasn't won. And same with, like, I don't care about the media side of that. Sure, whatever. You know, when Brad Marchand does those kind of things, and I go, fine. If you think that the media here is just so much worse than any other big market, fine, fine, fine. I don't care. I don't think that I'm the pinnacle of this profession, but I try at least, and I don't know very many people that I've worked with who are trying to angle something with someone personally or feel like what they want to do is just bring the team down. And for the most part, they just want to talk about it fairly. But he hit them in a soft spot. He hit fans in a soft spot, which is, hey, it's toxic here. Hey, you're opening the door for guys on the Panthers to mention you ran them out of town. You did all this stuff. And people are sensitive to that, period, like they are.
Oh, yeah, and we're in the bee's nest or whatever you want to say
Hmm.
right now. Like he's playing hockey, right?
Yeah.
In 20 years from now, he's going to get quite the reception, or 15 years from now, whenever he's
I'm
done.
not sure.
I think when they bring him back, I do. I think there will be a night, obviously, where he's honored for, where
Mm.
is he in all-time Leaf scoring? Is
He's top 10. Yeah,
he's
I think
top
he's like
10?
top maybe six. Like he's
Man,
high.
and it's an organization that's been around how long, and to be in that type of company is very, very special. And I do think in 15, 20 years, time heals all. I think he'll get his true reception.
Yeah.
But when you're in it and you're playing against that team at that moment, you just hope the fans bring it. You hope Mitch brings it, and you hope it's a memorable night all around,
Yeah. He's sixth all time in Maple Leaf scoring, which
which
is,
is crazy.
yeah, it is, of course. But what I would say to it is why I'm not sure he'll get the same reception when he returns as a retired player. It actually does depend on him to be the one who reaches out the olive branch to the organization and to the fans. At some point in his career, he's going to have to actually do a mea culpa and say, I wish I handled it better. Because Vince Carter did that, and he came back. And Vince Carter, that one drove me crazy because they released this documentary where they basically spun the facts into him being a sympathetic figure, and everyone bought into it, and so much time had passed that people forgot how it actually went down. And I was like, I feel like I'm taking crazy pills because this is just being completely whitewashed in terms of what actually happened. So I don't doubt if Vince can come back and people are talking about retiring his jersey and he's with the crowd crying and getting the full standing ovation.
It's going to happen.
Yeah, then Marner can get it too. But I would think that he would have to have a moment where he goes, yeah, I shouldn't have handled things the way that I did on the exit. Things could have been better. He doesn't have to put it all on himself, but there has to be an olive branch that he reaches out and gives to fans. And that's not right now. Right now, he's focused on his new team, him wanting to have success over there, his new family, his new teammates, the Olympic run that's coming up here. Like, it's asinine to believe that he's going to be giving the fans some kind of big acknowledgement outside of, my guess is that when he gets the video tribute tonight, that there's going to be a lot of people cheering during the tribute and then a lot of people booing during the play. And that he'll give the tip of the cap moment and people will be like, all right, it's time to move on. But some people will just hate your guts. And same thing with the Vince Carter thing. Some people still do hate his guts. And I don't mind that. You're a fan of a sports team. Like, if you're doing, Elliot reported yesterday that a fan posted Marner's address online on a tweet. That's obviously insane, lunatic, nutso behavior that no one endorses. But you can't make the false equivalency between nutso online behavior and a fan going to the arena wanting to boo a guy or to call him names that fit within the bounds of a public society at a hockey game and try to make those two things somewhere where they're even touching one another. They're not. They're completely separate.
They're two separate things, and that's a little bit of life now, right? How you can just you can bulk everything together and say it's the same, right?
Like, if you're not on this side, you're on the other side. There's no gray area.
And it's not. And it's not, right? Like you said, like if you're putting someone's address online, you're an idiot.
Yeah, you should go to jail.
You should literally, that's dangerous. But if you're booing and having fun at a sporting event that's supposed to be fun and exciting and bring joy and happiness and all these other things and bring up feelings and emotions, you know, over time of a player that meant something to you, that's completely different, like you said. But back, you kind of touched on it with Vince Carter. While you're in the moment as a hockey player, and I got to do that and kind of look back over time after I retired and see, I could have done this better. I could have done that. Mitch will be able to sit down and parse apart his career and think about the time and actually how much it meant to him and realize how important he was. Because when you're even playing in Toronto and I was here, you don't realize actually how big it is, I think, right? Or how much the fans care because you're just so focused on winning a Stanley Cup or winning hockey games and doing all that. So once he retires and he can kind of look back over his career, he'll have his Vince Carter moment where he eats a little crow just to be able to come back and understand how it went down. And that's going to be when he's retired. He's going to look back, and I think there'll be something like that.
Yeah, I don't even know if it'll be when he's retired. I would guess that starts at the end of his career. You know, when it's all really said and done in terms of him being one of the most impactful guys in the league. And he's making that final season tour around the NHL, and then he sits down, he'll do the interview with someone, and he'll talk about his side of things and how he's matured and how things have changed for him and how tumultuous it was. And you're right. If I had to bet, yeah, I would bet that he eventually becomes a sympathetic figure and someone who people end up going, hey, it wasn't so bad. They won a bunch of games.
And we're going to pull up this interview.
Yeah, well, they'll do things like, hey, he had a ton of points against Tampa in the series they won. And, you know, that when they lose to Boston, Matthews is out for 2 games or 3 games. Nylander's not in there for a couple of games. Marner was the one who suited it up. Hey, remember when he blocked shots against the Boston Bruins in the playoffs as a kid? Like, there were moments, man. I think that's actually, when you really think about it, one of the biggest issues is it really did seem from his standpoint, and even reading Elliott's article yesterday, that as difficult as it can be at times, feeling the pressure of this market, not being able to appreciate the good sides of it and just embrace what is being a guy who's from here, who gets to play for the Toronto Maple Leafs, gets to wear that sweater, gets to wear a letter and connect with the fan base. That was the missed element for him. Like, he had that one quote, remember, where he goes, "We're like gods here,"
Yeah.
after the playoff exit. The reason why that bothered me is not because he said we're like gods here, because that's actually true. Leaf fans love their players. There's so many Marner jerseys around the city. It's nuts. What drove me a little crazy about it is he is a local kid who, is not the most articulate. He gets nervous in front of microphones, in my opinion, but that he couldn't articulate what it meant to him to play for the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah.
And that one, I go,
It
that should
does show you a little bit of how he feels, right?
sure, but
And like you said, and what drove him nuts is kind of like a LeBron. He's not LeBron James. I'm not that.
no, but he cares about what the discourse is, like LeBron does.
Yeah, and LeBron lets you know a lot. Like, I'm the GOAT.
Yeah,
Why
too
would you
much.
say that?
Yeah, I know.
Let the people decide, and that's why people take MJ's side over LeBron's, because
Yeah.
MJ's like, there's different eras, there's different things, and I'm not saying he's arrogant or like to that level, but when you're saying we're gods here publicly, then people start to perceive you as you think about yourself that way, right?
Totally.
And that's where the problem comes. And like you said, it's how it's articulated. Did he mean it to be arrogant or anything?
I don't think so. No, me neither.
Yeah.
I just, like I said, that should be the easiest answer that you give. It's like talking about the team that you grew up rooting for and then accomplishing the dream of actually playing for them and making so much money and playing with talented teammates. Like, he's I use this analogy sometimes, but he's like the Simpsons monkey paw. If you remember that episode where it's like you get the wishes, but then they turn out to have a catch. He would have grown up going, hey, you're going to play on the same line as the greatest goal scorer in Maple Leafs history. You're going to get drafted 4th overall to your favorite team, and you're going to go to the playoffs every year you're there. And he would have gone,
what is this?
Yeah, like, there's no way all these things could come true. And then the Simpsons monkey paw turn was that, it turns out that you lose every year in the playoffs in brutal fashion, and you become a whipping boy, maybe oversized compared to some of those other players. Like, I think that he took more of a brunt than Matthews did. I think he took more of a brunt than Nylander did, outside of maybe 1 or 2 seasons where Nylander was more the whipping boy. But overall, it should have been better, and it could have been better, I think, from his standpoint, if he did have a greater appreciation for what was just in front of him and the kind of life that he was living.
Yeah, and if they all, like, at the end of every playoff round, if they took a little onus.
Totally.
Took a little onus,
Just a
like
bit.
every single guy, right? And so I'm thinking about 15 years from now, like, if he could go back and look at saying, like, I could have taken a little more onus here, which would actually put more pressure now because Dubas wasn't good here, right? So then the players could have been more loved when, and the fans could probably side with the players more than the management. But right now, like, the fans are mad at Dubas, they're mad at Matthews, they're mad at Marner, they're mad at him for leaving. But, you got to look at Dubas and how he built that team and the coaches he hired and the philosophy they had and the standards they had over that time too, right? But Marner just came out and those players went about it the right way and said, hey, we were not good enough. We were not good enough. We're sorry to the fans. We are sorry to the fans. I feel like it would have actually touched more heartstrings that would have then sided with them rather than just throwing them all in the bucket too.
Buddy,
which maybe would have helped the room.
Yes, of course it would have. Instead, it was, I'll never forget the Montreal exit. They're all going, we didn't get the bounces. Like, guys, you were the most dominant team in an it was the North Division that year, where you got this cupcake walk to what would have been an Eastern Conference Finals. And instead, you got bounced by a rival where you blew a 3-1 series lead. And Marner couldn't stop flipping pucks over the boards, over the glass for penalties. And they came out and started talking about the bounces. I talk about this with young guys all the time because when I was younger, I didn't really take accountability for things. It's something that you do grow into. But if you can learn that lesson faster, man, it is one of the most valuable things that you can get. Because if you just say when you make a mistake or when you're getting criticism, my bad, the general response from the people who are calling you out is, hey, man, it's all right. They
Yeah.
want to kind of brush it away and move past it too. They don't want you to have to sit in it. That's psychotic behavior. And so for those players, every time they had those exit interviews, and Marner included, and I think he was one of the faces of that, had they just said exactly what you said, most people's reaction would have been like, we were too hard on you.
Yeah.
Hey, all right, get him next
Let's
time.
blame Dubas.
Yes. And it,
That's saying.
and instead, because they were deflecting, talking about bounces and whatever, it ends up sticking around because you don't feel like it's settled. You don't feel like it's sorted, and you don't feel like they've actually been able to recognize what it is that's actually at the root of the problem as to why you keep running into the same failures over and over again. And so you're right. It stemmed from a lack of accountability. It stemmed from, I believe, a lack of appreciation for how special this market can be, and rather looking at the bad sides of being under a microscope, which is there's going to be a million comments about you no matter what. Like, that's just going to happen. And now we're in this place where, like I said, I think fans are going to boo. Anyway, all right, let's keep moving past this. So they are a team that looks worn down right now. They just came off to this West Coast trip. They accumulated a ton of points. They got hot. And now I don't think, I haven't seen the latest, but yesterday it was reported that Carlo suffered something, another little setback, tweaked something, I think the way it was put. McCabe hasn't looked like the same guy. OEL left yesterday or the last game with some kind of an injury. I don't know if he's going to play tonight. I would assume that he's not. This Olympic schedule is grinding not just the Maple Leafs, but a lot of teams into dust. They're not really practicing. They're playing basically 4 times a week. You've done this. You've done an Olympic schedule. What is this like?
Well, it's a grind, and we were just in Chicago, so I got to see the Bruins, the Jets, and the Hawks, and you get to talk to some players, and they like it in the sense of you can just play games and not practice,
Yeah.
but they're also like, man, the games are so hard, and you're missing a little bit of those key elements from practice that allow you to get into your details of the game. So they'll play a game, have a day off, and then they almost have to use morning skates as a practice. Like I went to the Hawks morning skate. It looked like a full practice, right? Practicing power play and all that because they had to take a rest day the day before. So it's just like the compounding days without being able to get to your practice, to practice on certain situations that help the game that you're lacking at. Because that's what coaches obviously do. They identify the weaknesses, they use the practice to strengthen, they see if it's executed in the game. But there's really none of that. So you're just going game, morning skate, and then you might get into a practice, right? You might have 2 days off, but it's a different type of scheduling that doesn't allow you to get to the root of some of your issues. And then obviously injuries come of it because guys are overtaxed.
Mm-hmm.
So it is really difficult. And there's certain teams I want to play. I think it doesn't help the Leafs in the way they want to play with the grind it down physical style at times because then the injuries are going to start to pop up just at how hard they got to play because it's hard to play bang it in, hammer it down hockey
Mm-hmm.
4 times a week, right? You got to play different ways, different elements of the game. You got to rely on your special teams a lot in games where your 5-on-5 game's not going because you can't always have your 5-on-5 game going, especially when you're playing almost every single night. So specialty teams has to be absolutely dialed in, but you also then don't get a lot of time to practice. You're pretty much doing special teams practice and morning skate. So from a player's standpoint, they like it in a sense. Coaches like it in a sense of just getting from game to game to game. But then they also understand they need the days of rest and they do need the practice to identify areas of weakness that they're not getting.
Well, and to your point about the Leafs style of play, there's also an issue with the roster construction, which is they're the 6th oldest team in hockey. So when you're playing this many games and you are playing a physical style, I don't think that, it's correlation isn't always causation, but it's hard to envision a scenario where the guys who are in their mid to late 30s are bouncing back from 4 games in a week the way that a team full of guys who are 23 to 27 are.
Yeah, you get trucked the night before,
Yeah.
and then you gotta wake up for a back-to-back, and I'm telling you, your body,
Yeah.
you get to the rink, and you're like, "I don't know if I can do this tonight," and then as athletes do, you muster it up and you get going. But that, like you said, the older guys, especially when you get into that 27 to 30 range, you take a licking or you get a hard shift or you tweak
Mm.
something, you wake up the next day and you're almost limping to the rink just in your mind trying to convince yourself you're okay to play. It's not easy, and the older you get, the harder it gets.
Well, yeah, and like it also when you do get an injury and you got to sit out for 2 weeks.
Well, you're missing so many games.
That's what I mean. You're not
Crazy.
missing 4 games. Like last year they were doing this thing where, and it was because of the 4 nations, they were splitting up certain times in the schedule where they would get these big breaks and guys would sit, and they were very cautious with injuries. Right now you have a guy like Nyes who told the media he's dealing with something that only gets better with rest, and yet he's out there every single night. You go,
Yeah.
well, this just can't be good for you. This can't be this is probably something you would like to avoid, but you're so desperate for points right now and you've got so many games. You got to suck it up and you got to go out there and you got to try to give your team something. All right, last thing. Yeah, how was Chicago? What was your favorite moment? Because you're there with all your former teammates. You're there celebrating Jonathan Taves. It was amazing on television, and it looked like such a fun time. So, yeah, how was it for you?
Yeah, the first day was obviously they brought back all the cup guys from the cup teams. Kane, Taves, Sad, and Letty couldn't be there because they're still playing. But just to see the guys, 16 years since the first one, 10 to 11 since the second. Being with that group of guys again, you realize how special it was. A lot of us, especially on that 2010 team, we're all still friends today. All our kids are friends. That family atmosphere and the way the Hawks went about it, like our kids got to ride the Zamboni and shoot pucks in the middle of the ice and be a part of that. And then the Jonathan Taves reception. I don't think there was a dry eye in the building. We were sitting next to John's mother, and she was all out bawling, right? And then everyone in our box is crying, and the reception just kept going on and on and on. And you just realize how big hockey and sports are in Chicago. It's such a sports first city. The people love their teams, especially if they win. No different than Toronto. But they remember, and for old guys like us coming back, it hits home. So it was a very, very well thought out 3-4 days by the Chicago Blackhawks, and very grateful that my kids got to witness it. And I know every player feels the same way, that their kids got to be a part of it and see it as well.
How's your liver?
Let's just say I've had no voice for a week, and it's coming back. Like I'm just like, I'm struggling.
I honestly thought you might have to cancel because you didn't have a voice. I thought there was definitely potential for that.
Believe it or not, it's better today.
Yeah.
Like 2 days ago, I got to hockey practice. I was just yelling at my assistant coaches to yell. I'm like, I can't say anything.
Yeah, the whistle was doing all the work.
Yeah, all the work.
Leaning on that whistle.
The kids are looking at me like, what's he saying? I'm like, I don't know. Just keep going.
Just do it. This is a wash. Again, Kris Versteeg, 2-time Stanley Cup champion and creator of the Clever app. Thanks for making time, buddy. I appreciate it.
For sure. Take care.
See you, bud. Couple things here. One is, reach out anytime on Twitter and Instagram at JD Bunkis. I am going to try to read stuff today. I was messaging McKee last night. I've been toying with the idea of trying to do something where fans can do a what we missed for Fridays, where they can at least come up with questions. I just want the variance in there and don't want it to end up being just the same 5 people that end up writing you messages. But I got a good one from a guy here on Twitter just now. He said, booing Marner's okay. Why were Leaf fans so disgusted, and they still are, when Tavares was booed by Islanders fans? Can't have it both ways. Totally agree. Like, there is definitely some hypocrisy there. What I would say is there's, I guess, 2 slight differences. One is when Tavares left, he didn't make it about Long Island and basically put it out there that there was a reason why he didn't want to be a New York Islander. It was more he was very torn, and then he went to go play for his hometown team. But Islanders fans, I never had a problem with them booing Tavares. I thought it was corny that we did like a John Tavares Day. I think it's cool that you celebrate your player, and I think Vegas fans should be the same way, that if Marner gets booed hellaciously tonight and he returns home, their fan base should be chanting for him, saying, if Leaf fans did a "we don't need you" chant, they should be doing a "we're happy to have you" chant. So, the part 2 is just fans are hypocrites. That's being a fan. You look at your guys and you root for them and you back them up. And then when it's the other way around, you freak out. So fair point, totally fair point by this guy. But I think it's pretty easily explainable. Even though, he's right. Leaf fans were a little too sensitive to the way that Tavares got treated on the island. It is Maple Leafs game day, and you know what that means. You can score a Popeye's chicken sandwich for only $6 in classic or spicy. Make it your new game day tradition. Get your $6 chicken sandwich at a Popeyes near you. Quick break, and I'll do my NFL picks for the weekend. So I am getting a lot of messages. Again, at JD Bunkis on Twitter or Instagram. This is just the way that I put it, is no one's going to cry for you being a Leaf fan. In fact, I would say when people are sympathetic to Leaf fans that are outside of this market, if they root for another team, that sucks. One of the best parts about the Leafs taking off when they had the young core of Marner, Matthews, when they got Tavares, when Nylander, it was the feeling like, hey, they could be hated again. I couldn't stand meeting friends or talking with friends that would say, I hope you guys are good again. The league is better when you're good again. That's horrible. So I don't want anybody to be upset about how Leaf fans are treated in this. Like I'm not asking that. I'm just talking to other people who root for this team and saying that is actually where I believe a night like tonight is where it's a little difficult for you. If you're quiet, people criticize you. If you're going to boo other hockey fans and markets, treat it like that's something so different than what they would do when, like Versteeg just mentioned, Kris Pronger got booed really heavily when he returned. This is what happens. You leave a team that you played for, and it's somewhat controversial. It's bitter. There's any type of controversy that is involved in it. And fans are likely to boo you. It happened to Tavares. That guy was right. People here were a little too sensitive about it because they were living high on the hog, but that's what you do. You cheer for your guys. And so because there is so much talk and because it ends up being a 24-hour news cycle about one topic, you're likely to have a lot of voices that are saying that what you're doing is materially different from any other fan base in a way that I don't think others would get it. Like when Kevin Durant left Oklahoma City and he went to the Golden State Warriors, because they are Oklahoma City and not New York or LA, I don't remember there being think pieces on whether you should boo or not or how Kevin Durant should be treated. He got the cupcake stuff. It was, I can't remember who said it or how it became a thing, but fans were calling him Cupcake, and they were making cupcake signs, and they were screaming and booing. And, hey, he got into it with Russell Westbrook in that game, and they were going hard at him. It was an intense game, and I don't remember it being like, are Oklahoma City fans toxic? Is this why no one wants to play in a small market because it means too much to them? No. It was just, hey, this guy played for them, and then he left to go play for another team, and their fans are pissed about it, so they're responding this way. End of thought. Hey, we're looking forward to seeing the atmosphere because there's 82 of these things, and not all of them are built the same way. Some of them are boring. A lot of them feel like you're watching guys go through the motions. So whatever it is, if you're a fan, cheer or boo, who cares? Have fun tonight. Have fun watching if you're at home, and have even more fun if you're at the game. Anyways, NFL this weekend. We've got championship weekend, which is the saddest weekend of the year for me. Just knowing that this is the last time we get more than one football game, brutal. But at least my team is in it. And I'm nervous. I'm sweating this out. I've already doomcasted a million different things that can happen poorly for the Seahawks. So I will say I reserve the clause of if you believe in the way that I'm looking at this game, just know that I'm emotionally invested in the Seattle Seahawks. And I also have a rule, which is don't bet on your own team. I don't really love that unless you're going to the game. That's my exit clause. Bet on the home team. When you go to a game, if you're a sports bettor, it's fun. The Rams haven't looked like the Rams. It's been a while now since we've felt like they were the best team in the NFL. The problem is that for both teams, you have what I believe to be kind of throwaway games in terms of trying to evaluate what you have moving forward, with Los Angeles having to play in those elements in Chicago and Seattle playing in a game that was over on the first play when Shaheed ran it in for a kick return. Niners never scored 7 points in that game. It's hard to look at the body of work for either of those teams right now and point it to this matchup and say, okay, hey, this is what we've got moving forward. What I would say is if you're a Seahawks fan or you're thinking about picking the Seahawks, they've lost the turnover differential in both of these games. And in one of them, they only lost by 2 points and they won the other one. The flip side is the Rams got out to leads in both of those games. And for Mike McDonald's team, with Sam Darnold at quarterback, I don't think that's the game script that's going to work for this. I don't believe that Darnold is the guy that if you need him to pass all game long, you're going to be able to beat that Rams front seven and that Rams defensive line. I think that they will get to him, and I think that they will force him to make some mistakes. If they can get out ahead and they can run downhill and they can play with a lead with that defense, I like Seattle's chances. So this is sort of a cop-out, but I do feel like this is very much going to be a game script where what you see in the first half is going to be really indicative of how the game goes. Does Seattle stake themselves to a lead? I love them. Do the Rams? Ooh, that's going to be tough. Seattle hasn't had the same ability of getting to Matthew Stafford. Their defense has not looked as great against him, and it certainly didn't in the first half of the last two meetings when they were able to run the ball. So I think it's a divisional matchup for the third time. Two coaches that are among the best in the NFL. But I'm kind of siding with the pedigree of the Rams here. Seattle has home field advantage. I think it's going to be loud. I think that they are going to play well. But this one really does come down to me in terms of variance of ways to win. And I feel like the Rams have more ways to win this football game. And so I'm taking the points in that one. Patriots, Broncos, totally different story. I know Sean Payton's going to have all the screen passes set up for Jared Stidham. I know that Drake May has been getting sacked, and he's been turning the ball over. And I really do believe that the Patriots are very fortunate to be in this position. I don't think that they're a bad football team. I don't think that you should be blaming them for the teams that they've played, but it should be noted that these guys are going to go up against the worst offensive line in football, that C.J. Stroud performance, and now get Jared Stidham. To me, this is not overly complicated. I'm betting on the New England Patriots and Drake May, who's an MVP candidate and I think has a very good case to win it, against a guy who's starting his fourth NFL game, period. If Jared Stidham shocks me, fine. I can live with that result. But if you're taking the points with the Denver Broncos, how good are you going to feel if they go down a touchdown? How confident are you going to feel that this guy is going to be able to bring them back into the game? I don't. I think that the New England defense is playing extremely well. They've got a ton of momentum. Their coach is on fire right now. And I can't back that quarterback without knowing him. If he shocks me, if he surprises me, he plays great, good. I want a competitive football game. I have no skin in this. But yeah, I can't believe the line is what it is. This is sharp football bettors doing, oh, well, it's home. And is there that big of a drop-off between Stidham and Bo Nix? And I would say yes. And the other part of this is I don't trust Denver's defense. Hope I'm wrong. Hope Denver upsets New England. I'm not rooting for New England to get back to a Super Bowl when they just were coming off of a Tom Brady dynasty. I don't care what Brady Quinn says about it being 6 years. That's too quick of a turnaround to be a dynasty and then be set up in a way that looks like you could be an AFC powerhouse for the next decade. I just have not come away overly impressed by Denver's defense for weeks now. And I think that some of their numbers are pretty fraudulent, and they don't put the fear in me. I think Ramondre Stevenson is going to be able to run on them. I love his prop in terms of the over. I don't believe that small Denver front seven is going to handle him very well. And if they can continuously set up for short third downs or keep themselves out of third down situations, I really do believe that this has more of a potential to be a blowout than it does a close game. Because if New England goes up big early, Jared Stidham's got to get you back into it. Not buying it, not trusting it. Don't think that it's going to happen. I'm all over New England here. All right, quick break. We'll come back and talk to Michael Grange about what the Raptors are actually going to do at the deadline. I know I have already stated that I have Marner fatigue. And yet here I am talking about it yet again coming out of a break. But that's because, again, I keep getting messages. And I think that they're far more in line with my level of thinking when it comes to this topic. One guy just messaged me now. He's like, well, I don't understand why people wouldn't boo. I don't know what I'm missing with this story. And yeah, I'm seeing a lot of these things. Like the guys are getting messages too, and they're sending them into the document that we share for the show. And a lot of it is like, of course, this is on him. Of course, this is going to boo. I believe that the only reason that this is become think piece land on boo or not to boo is one, is it's like easy. But two is it has to do with people's telling Leaf fans for the last, my entire lifetime, all I can speak to is that it's your fault the team doesn't win. That it's just like this self-loathing or this gaslighting that you actually believe that your fandom in some way is preventing this team from having success. That if you act like any normal fan would, where you boo a guy who left you under acrimonious terms, that you are in some way complicit in this toxic fan behavior that is materially different than other places when it is just not. I watch every sports league. I watch sports every night, basically. This is what happens. You leave, you get booed. You're from here, and you speak about a fan base this way, and you treat them the way that you did on the way out, you're going to get booed. It's not that complicated. But because, again, you get blamed, you feel like you have to defend your position when it comes to something that is overly simple. That's all this is to me. Anyways, Michael Grange of Sportsnet joins me now. A guy who has blamed Leaf fans, wrote a book blaming Leaf fans. I forgot about that. That was our first interaction, you and I together, was me reading your book going, what the hell is this? Why did you do this chapter? He joins now. What's up, buddy?
How you doing, JD?
Good,
Thanks
man.
for having me on.
Yeah, it's great to have you. So you did some great reporting this week. You wrote on Bobby Webster. You wrote on kind of calming the storms of all these rumors around the Toronto Raptors of like other executives are saying and other teams are saying. And this is like kind of old hat for Raptors fans, I think, where they get lumped in on a lot of things and you go, oh, is this coming from the team? And it's like, no, it's coming from other places because I think over at least Masai Ujiri's tenure, they were a pretty tight organization in terms of letting things get leaked. But yeah, you put it out there that the Raptors are not feeling pressure. Bobby Webster is, like, I guess, kind of far from a lame duck general manager because the team is quietly working out an extension with him that will probably take place after the deadline. You can correct me if I'm like paraphrasing this in a way that's incorrect. But yeah, I guess, what does that look like for him in terms of an extension, and why wait until after a deadline? Like, why that timing in particular? Oh, I think we lost Grange. I think he just disappeared. I think he had horrible internet connection. I've never seen that before on the video. That's the very first time that it's ever gone quite like that. I thought it was my TV, but it turns out that was Grange. Yeah, Grange back in probably 2 seconds. All right, let me just. That's the only piece that I don't really understand. I get why Bobby Webster would be getting an extension or why they wouldn't be looking at other guys right now. Like, you're in the middle of a season. But why does it have to be after a trade deadline? That like kind of leads me to believe, for whatever reason, that the deadline matters or that there's some kind of added impetus for this guy's extension, or like, I just don't get the timing. Anyways, Grange is back. I think his internet connection is working again. He's back here. Okay, so yeah, like I mentioned in the reporting, why is it that they're trying to work it out during that timeline instead of having this thing be done already?
A fair question. I mean, I think the way to understand that is when Bobby Webster was given position as the top basketball executive, if not the title of president, there was a little bit of a show me element. And, when you look at the progress from Keith Pelley taking over the MLSE job, letting go Masai Ujiri, starting an executive search for what at the time what he said was going to be a president. And then, after 2-3 months of that, I think just about 2 months, deciding that the best guy they had was in-house. That's takes some progress. And I think once they arrived at that decision, I think it was a little bit harder for them to hire a replacement than they kind of realized. And when they were going through candidates, they thought, well, let's just try the guy we have. I mean, there is good relationships. There is a lot of history there. And so from that point on, there was a little bit of a prove me thing going on. It's like an assistant coach becoming a head coach. Can he really handle the heat? And I think as things progressed through summer league, through training camp, through the start the Raptors season has had, certainly I think the way Raptors 905 has played, the way the Ingram deal has worked out, and the relationship has kind of grown and blossomed. It's got to the point where there's an air of inevitability around Bobby Webster getting in a multi-year agreement. And so to do it now versus in a month or 2 months or in the off season, I think is a little bit irrelevant. I don't think anything that's happening at the trade deadline is going to be germane to what happens to this contract negotiation. So I think it's just sort of logistics more than anything else, that it's going to be something that'll be dealt with down the road. But I think the point is that there's a good, the word that keeps coming up over and over again is good vibes. And as Keith Pelley said to me in that piece, there's nothing that Bobby needs to worry about around the trade deadline or around his contract. And, it sounds like that relationship is on really firm ground.
Okay, so there's a couple things here for me when I'm thinking about Bobby Webster. I have zero issue with the Raptors extending him. And the main reason is I don't really know anything about Bobby Webster. And I've interviewed Bobby Webster many times. Like, he's a pretty calculated dude in terms of what he says to you, what he will give back in a public interview. He's obviously very smart, and he's not going to open up. Like, Masai, it used to crack me up watching Masai media conferences because he would always end the season doing this bit of, I don't even know why we do this. You're not going to get anything from me. And then he would give you like 45 things that would spin into topics of conversation throughout the offseason because he was such a passionate speaker. And I don't think that he was as good at being guarded when he was in a public space speaking. It's just like kind of the nature of who the guy was. Bobby Webster, totally the opposite for me, where when he's at a podium or when he's doing an interview, you're like desperately scratching and clawing to get a little bit of insight on a thing or turn something into a topic, and you finish the interview and you go, yeah, I got nothing. And he's also been under Masai Ujiri's wing for his entire tenure up until now. And so, yeah, we've all heard things like, hey, he was integral in the Kawhi trade and he was the one that came up with putting Danny Green in the deal. You're like, okay, cool. Outside of that, I don't really know what his philosophy is. I don't know what he's all about as a general manager. I don't know how much credit or, for that matter, criticism that he should be receiving, because that's what the Raptors were getting the last 5 years post the championship run in 2020. Like, what is your read on this guy in general in terms of what, like, I know trying to win a championship, right? Like, duh. But I mean, philosophically, or in terms of the credit, the blame, all of these different things, where he actually lies in all this stuff. How much do we really even know about him?
Again, another fair question. And I think that was part of the process that MLSE was undergoing as they went through their search last year. And they were kind of still working with Bobby. And from all accounts, when they went to Las Vegas together, this is Keith Pelley, Bobby Webster at Summer League. And, that was a real kind of critical moment in that relationship. You go to Vegas, who knows what happens down there. But to really see Bobby on the ground, really understand what the Raptors operation is like. And keep in mind, I think it's fair to say the people who are running MLSE at the moment, they're not dyed-in-the-wool basketball guys. They're not guys who sort of understand it. I'm not suggesting they don't, but there's nuances to every league. MLSE owns a whole bunch of teams, and effectively they kind of own the Blue Jays now, which is, what I'm getting at. Like it's they're all under one ownership rubric. And there's a lot of files in the portfolio, so to speak. And so to be in Vegas, to see how that operation runs, to see what their points of emphasis are, to see how Bobby interacts among his peers within the league, I think that was all very informative. I would say in my interactions with Bobby, and so the point I'm making there is there was a process to understanding exactly what you just said, is how much of this is the situation we're in was Masai Ujiri's doing, how much it was Bobby Webster's doing. And I think Bobby being, I think a good friend and a trusted colleague of Masai Ujiri for years and years, he wasn't about to turn around and throw him under the bus and say, well, those are all Masai ideas. Any of the good ones were mine.
Yeah.
Again, you're going to lose respect in my eyes. I'm not going to hire a guy who does that.
Of course.
So I think that I think it was a matter of seeing the person in action, getting understanding of maybe the full context of some of the decisions that were made in the last 3, 4, 5 years, and understanding the logic behind it and what Bobby's view of them were in retrospect. That created a comfort level. I would say I think you're right. Bobby does an amazing job he's a very sociable, very friendly and approachable guy. But you're not a confidant of his, he's not bringing into Bobby's world and sharing all these kind of details that make you feel like something. And Masai Ujiri, you're right, did that publicly, and he would do that privately too. He was I wouldn't say an open book, but he was, you certainly knew what he was thinking, or knew where his passions lied, I guess would be the way to put it.
Yeah.
Where Bobby's a little bit more, there's a little more distance there. Not in a kind of an obnoxious or awkward way. It's just, he'll ask questions. He wants to know what you think. He's not so keen to share his thoughts. He wants to hear your thoughts, and it can be anything from food to movies to travel to restaurants. That's how he interacts in a conversation. All of which to say is, I think if we study sort of what this team has done in a meaningful way, the last, we all know the history, is the Kawhi Leonard deal, Bobby gets a lot of credit for. I think the Brandon Ingram deal, Bobby gets a lot of credit for. I think he is a guy who is willing to take risks and find value. And I presume every general manager would say the same thing, but he's got a track record of doing exactly that. But he's not perfect, and I know you're probably going to bring up in a minute. But I think he's a guy who's going to be aggressive and take some risks. But again, he's not a fool. He's not reckless. I think it's measured. I think it's calculated. I think he's seen firsthand the value of patience can provide in this league. And as much as you want to change things overnight, sometimes these things take 6, 12, 18 months to kind of play out, just because of the nature of the way the league is structured.
Yeah. So in terms of the negative things that you think I was going to mention, I actually am totally fine with where the Raptors are at right now. I think it's like a good position. If you were going to tell me before the season this is where they were going to be in the standings, I would have said, all right, what I'm really hoping for is that Scotty Barnes takes a step. It does feel like they're establishing a culture, and that the Brandon Ingram trade looks like a success and not an abject failure. And to that point, that it doesn't feel like they're taking turns, that sometimes it's Brandon Ingram's team and sometimes it's Scotty's team, and that there's friction in terms of the style of play of those two guys. Brandon Ingram has bought in the defense. Brandon Ingram's been healthy. The major checkpoints for this team, in my opinion, are positive. And so the idea that they would be looking to extend a guy, that totally vibes with the way that I think most people are feeling, especially, and this should be noted too, they are coming off of seasons that were just a pain. Like I don't think I watched, 5 of the last 20 Raptors games, and I don't believe anyone should fault me for that last year. And I am someone who prides himself on trying to watch absolutely as much as I can always. And it was like, yeah, I don't need to watch any of this. So there's a bit of a bump you get from just being relevant, right? Like if this was year 3 of this, I don't think people would have the same patience. My only kind of reservation here is I feel good about where the Raptors are at, but they are kind of one mistake away from, I don't really like where this is, where that's why all these rumors about like Anthony Davis or John Morant that have been floated around. And granted, I don't think that they are actually coming from the Raptors. As your piece pointed out, a lot of this desperation level is being floated by other organizations, other executives. But he's not Sam Presti, where he wants to strip things down and accumulate a bunch of draft picks and play it the safest way possible, which is the future, and keep bumping that future back. He is willing to take risks. If you look at the Brandon Ingram trade and trying to buy low on assets, the one thing that you would kind of fear is if you are that risk taker, I don't really look at them and say, you're in this incredible position where you can afford a bunch of different risks where they fail, like, say, the Oklahoma City Thunder are at right now, where if they give up 2 first-round picks, ain't nobody caring about that. If the Raptors do that in this position and they hire or they go out and acquire the wrong long-term piece to be the third banana or the next big move around Ingram and Barnes, I think that will actually have pretty detrimental effects to where the franchise goes from here. And that's, I think, where people are worried at when it comes to these rumors right now, which is you don't have a million bullets and you already have a couple of bad contracts on the books. How are you going to navigate what is the most difficult step within an organization, which is going from being good to being a contender?
Yeah, I think the margin for error is pretty thin.
Mm-hmm.
That's totally fair. I know going into this season, you just look at the starting lineup. Their average age is 26, 27 years old. So that is not classic rebuild age. That's kind of primed. Like, what you're getting is close to what you're going to get. And then when you look at what you're paying them, these are guys being paid at or above league averages. So you would expect at or above league average performance. Collectively, we've seen that. But you're correct in that you can kind of fumble this and be in a position where you're stuck a little bit pretty easily. And the league does move pretty quickly. And it's not like you look at this group and they have a bunch of levels to fall. In some ways, you look at them, man, they could go 1-9 and things would look a lot different pretty quickly. But I think on the positive side of this is, as a group collectively, they are at the beginning of their prime. So I think the simplest answer to how this team is going to improve and kind of keep progressing is that I think there's a good opportunity for internal progression. And as much as Scotty Barnes has taken a step this year, I think what it's shown to me is that there are more steps. As good as he's been, there's still a little meat on that bone. I think he's really developed in all areas of his game. And I think as a person, just as you might expect, as a 24-year-old versus a 20-year-old. And that's still something that's coming along. And I think Colin Murray-Boyles is an example. That's a home run of a draft pick. That guy is going to be a really significant player on winning teams in a way that is completely, it's not like something needs to be built around him. He can be attached to something and make it better. So I think that where I'm getting at with all of this is you're right. And I think this is where the Raptors are too, is there's no need or urgency to make a big swing because they need to prove something to somebody. That's maybe what was essential in that story I did earlier this week is there's an understanding on all fronts that the time to make a giant move, to do something dramatic, to really accelerate something probably isn't now. And even the contracts that look a little scary, maybe certainly Jakob Poeltl one when he doesn't play looks terrifying. And Emmanuel Quickley's, I wouldn't call it a terrible contract. I would say right now it's okay. It's if he plays better, it looks a lot better. A year from now, those contracts are shorter in length in terms of what's remaining. There's still, I think that's when you can maybe look at, there's going to be more maneuverability a year from now and a clear idea of what you might need to maneuver around. So I think that's the positive. You're right. I mean, they're kind of on a thin edge. They're a little bit of bad luck away from kind of being in a situation where, like, okay, well, how do we get out of this? Yep. But I think if you told me, we agree, like if they're essentially tied for third place in the East, they've done it with no Poeltl, very little RJ Barrett.
15 games where they've missed 2 or more starters.
Right. I mean, if you told me even when they were rolling in November that you could take that level of injuries among their starters and still be relevant at this time of year, I would have said no.
Yes.
And so I think that's what's really impressed me is that they've been able to keep it together, cobble it together. Culture-wise, I think Darko Rakovic and his staff do a great job. I think there's still buy-in there. There is buy-in there. So, I think that they're establishing a good foundation, a building block. Let's hope they can keep it going for the next 35 or so, 8 games. And then I think there'll be some interesting discussions in the summer and beyond.
Totally agree. To me, you've got a huge part of this figured out, which is that you've got a good foundation in Barnes and Ingram, and that the Barnes part of it in particular is like I'm less confident about the Ingram thing given the injury history of just like year over year, hey, this is going to always be a hit for you. But Barnes, 24 years old, I think there's been a maturity leap. I think there's a play leap. All of it is just like unbelievably encouraging. You hit on the Colin Murray-Boyles pick. It's very difficult for me to believe that he's not going to be an unbelievably impactful player over the next decade of his career, like just from what we've seen already. So you've got a nice core foundation. The question becomes, what do those other two guys turn into in Quickly and Pirtle? I'm with you that I would wait. If you're trying to move off those deals right now, you're selling at their absolute lowest. You're probably having to attach things to it in a market where there's nothing overly impressive. And with Quickly's contract in particular, like the benefit of it is it's not an escalating deal. It stays flat at $32 million a season year over year. So you would assume, given one, the fact that you need his shooting, two, that the deal is going to get better and that his play probably is going to improve from where it's been at this season, especially from just like a health standpoint, you would hope, that it becomes a more desirable asset. I'm waiting on those two guys. The tricky piece that, honestly, man, I don't know. I don't even really have an opinion on it, which, for me is kind of a rarity, is what to do with RJ Barrett, because he doesn't have that contract extension. If you do give him one, you're in one of those places where it becomes, all right, how do we navigate out of this if the Pirtle deal is a bad one, if the Quickly deal doesn't remain or doesn't improve? Now you've got RJ Barrett on the books. You kind of feel like you've hit a ceiling as a team. You can't trade him for nothing because he's valuable to you. He wants to be here. He loves Toronto. He's popular here. He's like, well, I think the guys were telling me that he's like the number 9 jersey sale in all of Canada. Like he's loved by Raptors fans. He's unbelievably additive when he's with the group. And yet you're working in a timeline only with him that you wish was just maybe a year longer so that you could sort this out and play out the results. And that's the one where I go, all right, you kind of have to act with urgency here, but it also feels like the type of thing that almost any direction you go is going to end up being a mistake. Maybe I'm just pessimistic about it, but it does. It just looks like such a tight line to walk with the RJ Barrett stuff.
Yeah, I wouldn't go that far. I mean, I think it's, let's look at the positive to begin with, is it was shocking to me, and has been, shocking is probably not the word. It's consistently been surprising to me. Going into this year, at times during this season, I would talk to people in the NBA, and these are people who are sort of paid to know things. They're opposing team scouts, in some cases opposing executives. And their perception of RJ Barrett trails performance. And for whatever reason, his time in New York, even though he was part of winning teams, he was part of teams that went to the playoffs, he performed reasonably well. There just became an impression of him that developed around how he plays basketball. And it's basically, he's a chucker, doesn't defend much, and he's got a limited ceiling, good kid, right? And so that's not RJ Barrett this year. I don't think it was RJ Barrett last year. I think there's been moments where he was asked to do a lot within the context of a losing team here in Toronto where he could have made that criticism here and there. But by and large, in Toronto, and certainly in Toronto this year in a winning context, he's played really good basketball, and we've seen it. And I think that impression of him is just beginning to circulate in a meaningful way. I think that what people would have thought before, he's done the hard work of kind of changing his reputation, fair or not, around the league as a guy who can contribute to winning, who can be a complementary piece versus a focal point, who knows how to get offense around other, ball dominant players seamlessly. That's hard to do. And by the way, when needed, he can kind of bulldoze his way to the rim, get fouled, score, and carry an offense for moments at a time.
Charlotte game.
Those are all really positive attributes. And defensively, let's just say he's better, right? I don't think he's ever going to be, OG Anunoby, but he's there's been a commitment to him to really make it a big part of his game. And as a result, I think he set himself up for a really interesting next phase of his career. I think the profile of player I've just described is really valuable. Like, I think there's a big market for that. I think being a inefficient chucker, not that he was, I'm not going to say he was exactly that, but that reputation, that doesn't spend as well.
Mm-hmm.
But RJ Barrett's got another year on his deal.
Yep.
So whatever decision the Raptors need to make on him doesn't have to be made automatically this summer. It doesn't have to be made automatically in the next 2 weeks. The fact that he's only got a year on his deal means that if they are going to do something, that contract is probably going to be in it, just because he performs well for the contract, and B, whatever team isn't receiving in the case of Quickly or Pirtle multiple years that they got to absorb. But there is another world where, like you said, he wants to be here. The fans like him here, and he knows how to play among the players that are here. That all of a sudden, RJ Barrett's next contract at 4 years and whatever it's going to be, it's not going to be a max deal. Mm-hmm. He becomes that player who is kind of additive to your whole salary structure because it's at a level that works. Mm-hmm. We weren't saying that a year ago. This year we are. So I think it's again, if I had to bet, I think that all this is going to get pushed down the road to the summer. Mm-hmm. But I think that's what you're raising is a pretty fair point, that the Barrett question is maybe the biggest one facing this team right now.
Yeah, it's the most pressing. My guess would be same as yours. You push it to the offseason. He becomes an expiring contract, which brings a different kind of value to teams. They don't feel, maybe there's a group that in that trade discussion, they don't think that they're re-signing him, and they're totally comfortable with that, right? They just want the expiring deal. They want the money off the books. It gives you a little bit more flexibility in a trade. Fine. My gut feeling, though, is you cannot have a team where you have all those 5 guys on the salaries that they're going to command. That at some point you're going to have to make a decision at least on one of them. So if you are re-signing RJ Barrett, which doesn't seem like it's really on the table in this very moment anyways, that would lead to, well, one of these other 2 guys is going to be going out the door a year from now. And based on what we're seeing this year from Quickly and from Pirtle, from a health standpoint and a play standpoint, it feels also unlikely that just even in the offseason that you're going to be able to move off of one of those guys with ease or bring something back in return that is going to be of fundamental value to your team. So it's why I just keep looking at him and going, man, I love when he's on the floor. He is so additive. I really do think, I referenced that Charlotte game, but the reason why I keep doing that is it's one of my favorite moments of the year because it's not just how he played and how he took over when they needed something from him. It's the dog that's in that guy where there is kind of like this hunger within him of, I'm going to show you something. And sometimes that doesn't work out with his game. Not everybody's perfect. He's not one of the league's best 5 players. But I think the attitude he has and the presence he carries is important for cultivating a culture moving forward. And I just think offensively he fits with a lot of different teams. And he's kind of proven that he doesn't have to be the ball dominant player that he was at times in New York, where it is the chucker analogy. He's fit in much better with these guys when they've been healthy than I would have honestly envisioned from the outset. And so I just think it's tricky. And I don't love the idea of trading him, and yet I don't love the idea of keeping him, and that's why I'm just damn it, I can't do a real hard line opinion like I'm used to with this player. Anyways, that's where they're. Okay, last thing. So ahead of the deadline, then, it really does feel like your feel in this moment anyways, and of course things could change, but it's try to duck the luxury tax, maybe at a big, don't expect much more than that.
Yeah, I say 100% they're going to duck the luxury tax,
Mm-hmm.
and the way they might do that, they could do a trade today, and
Yep.
it could be Jamison Battle and a protected 2nd-round pick. No offense, I'm just making this up.
Yeah.
But and that gets them. They need to shave off $1 million. That gets them under the cap, or the luxury tax, I should say, and then it still gives them a week, let's say, to try and engage in some of these bigger deals. And I think because of the contracts that we've been talking about, it's pretty unlikely the Raptors are going to do something in a one-to-one trade. It's more likely it's going to be part of something that's a lot more complex. Those things are always more prone to falling through or not happening. But I would say this: I think if there's an opportunity to acquire a player at a position of need in that kind of 26 to age 30 range, in other words, someone who matches the core of the group they have now, who is impactful, I think they're gonna try and do it. Because I think like I say, it fits to what they have. B, they're in a good position. Why not make your team better now, and you don't have to wait to be successful. Be successful today, and if it works along with sort of maybe helping them kind of snake through these contract issues we're talking about, that's a bonus as well. And does it cost you a future first round pick? It could be worth the price. So I think that would be the goal. I don't think they're going to do something on a rental player basis. In fact, I'm 100% sure they're not doing that. I don't think they're going to take a big risk on somebody who doesn't fit in culturally. That's the Ja Morant angle.
You didn't need to say it. That's everybody got it.
So I think those are your parameters. Is something that's kind of simple, just to clean up their books, and then can they make themselves a part of a trade that really could, almost like a Brandon Ingram type player, that someone of that level, that age, who can be part of this group now and in the next couple of years.
Yeah, a little bit older than that, but that the only guy that feels realistic to me when they kind of float his name out. Well, listen, AD, I'm terrified of that move. I'm like praying. I don't know how I would.
I don't think it's there.
I don't think it's there. Oh God, I just can't, Grange. I just cannot do that experience and then the extension. But the only guy to me that whenever he's brought up, I go like, okay, I could see something there at the right price is Sabonis.
The bonus, and then I haven't seen the Raptors attached at all, but look at Jaren Jackson in Memphis.
Oh, sure, yeah, great.
And but obviously, if that happens, there's going to be a ton of competition in that space. Yeah. But
also doesn't help your rebounding a lick.
But here's the interesting thing, and we talked about Colin Murray-Boyles, is his emergence alongside Scotty Barnes, and you can only take this data so far, but the two of them are either the best or second best defensive duo in the NBA right now. And so that kind of does open up flexibility in terms of who else you can pair with them. Like you don't need to like the fact that Jaren Jackson Jr. plays he's a lifted five. He's not a big rebounder. It almost doesn't matter as much because
I would just think he'd be in the trade. Like, if you're getting Jaren Jackson Jr. and you're Memphis, I'm not making that trade without getting Colin Murray-Boyles back. Like, I'm not doing that for the Raptors' 2029 pick.
Well, then I'd be very hesitant to make that trade.
Agree.
Put it that way.
Yes, agree. That's how good he is.
I am that high on Colin Murray-Boyles right now.
No, he's a very popular Toronto Raptor already, which is great because there was a real moment there when I was watching Derek Queen the first 2 months of the season going, oh, my God, I would have loved him so much. And this kind of feels like a thing they could have used. And now I'm like, nope, they made the right pick. And I don't think I'm going to be coming off that take anytime soon. Michael Grange of Sportsnet, thanks for making time, buddy. Appreciate it.
Always, JD. Take care.
See you, pal. All right, quick break. We'll come back, hit what we missed. So obviously it's Leafs game day. Probably the number one, not probably, definitely the number one circle the calendar game of the season. Score a Popeye's chicken sandwich for only $6 in classic or spicy. Make it your new game day tradition. Get your $6 sandwich at a Popeye's near you. And yes, I like that texter who just fired one in who said, boo or don't, I don't care. I'm just so sick of this discourse. I agree. I cannot wait to move past this. Also, some updates to share. OEL and Brendan Carlo each on the ice for morning skate today, which is huge for this team. They did recall Henry Thrun from the Marlies, so maybe one of these guys is more of a game time decision. But yeah, man, this team just cannot afford another major injury. And at least that's what they've avoided with these guys. And yeah, I said it on Leafs Talk, which, by the way, listen to tonight right after the game. Sammy and I will be up. The way that OEL fell looked uncomfortable, looked crappy, but it didn't. The way that his legs went underneath him, not to be Twitter doctor, not to be watching TV from the couch with no medical degree guy, but it just didn't. It didn't look like a major twist to the knee. It didn't look like something that was going to be, holy crap, can you believe that he's out 3 to 4 months? It just, so I'm glad that one set up. The most interesting part of this, by far though, is Anthony Stolarz setting up in the starters net. Whew. It's a big one to bring him back in if that is in fact going to be the case. So yeah, maybe Anthony Stolarz in net tonight, which, if that's the case, the over-under of 1.5 that I set, that people said was a good line, was a horrific line. And if you took that over, you're already counting your money. It's done. Even the fact that he's up here is like you're counting your money on that one. All right, Brandon Brown is here. What did we miss?
Yeah, so some interesting reporting from Frank Cervalli yesterday. It seems like another professional hockey team is coming back to Southern Ontario. The Islanders American Hockey League affiliate, Bridgeport, the Bridgeport Islanders. They seem to be heading to Hamilton's newly renovated TD Coliseum as soon as next season. So it's always great to have more hockey, it feels like, down in the Southern Ontario area, especially in Hamilton, where there's obviously a huge history of great junior teams. Obviously, the Hamilton Bulldogs were there for a long time. How do you feel about?
It's been a while. How long have the Bulldogs not been there?
Actually, I thought it was longer than it has been. They left for Brantford in 2023, so it's only been about 3 years now. But yeah, how do you feel about this?
I'm
city of
stoked for
Hamilton?
it. I'm stoked for it. I actually think Hamilton's unbelievably underrated. Like, it takes a beating in terms of the way that people talk about it, but I can truly say I don't think I've ever had a bad time in the Hammer. I think that the downtown is fun. I think that it's cool. I think that it's a great city. I think that there's a lot of people that are super proud to be from there. I like the way that they back their sports teams in general. Like, it is definitely a sports town, so them getting an AHL team is great. I don't know, again, the fact that they lost one in the first place stinks. Maybe a better job this time around, or I'm not familiar with the story in terms of how it happened politically or what the attendance was, anything like that. But yeah, if you're going to tell me that you can go from Bridgeport to Hamilton and attendance is an issue and fan engagement is an issue, then yeah, I would assume that this is a pretty quality move for you.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, they were only getting just over 4,000 per game in Bridgeport.
Yeah.
Apparently, I was reading into this yesterday. A lot of fans in the Connecticut area were really upset when they rebranded the team. It was originally the Bridgeport Sound Tigers, and they rebranded to the Islanders to make it more inclusive with the club. And people were really upset about that. I think it was.
I actually think they should be. That was a horrible decision.
Yeah, like I think that's kind of what started this whole thing. And then it seems like over the last few years, attendance has really fallen. So yeah, they're looking for a bit of rejuvenation in Hamilton.
Good for Hamilton. Keep them this time. All right, what's next?
Yeah, we had Baseball America's Top 100 prospects list come out over the last couple of days, and some Blue Jays have made their marks in that list. Last year, we only had one guy. Ricky Tiedemann was number 100. So we were just at the end there.
No, that can't be possible. They would have had Namala and they would have had Trey Savage.
No, they were not. Tiedemann was the lone Blue Jay last year to crack it, number 100.
No way.
Yeah.
No way.
That's the information.
Googling it. Where'd you get that information? I'm challenging the information that's laid out on this. There's no way Arjun Namala was not in the top 100 for Baseball America last year. He had to be on it. I think that I do remember this list too. It was like, yeah, Tiedemann did get in there, but I'd be shocked if there was no Arjun Namala ahead of him. He's just like, he's always like, he's been now for over a year considered to be the Jays' top prospect. Either way, the fact that they got three guys in there is nice. I don't know what Ricky Tiedemann's future is, to be honest. Like, I keep hearing people go like, maybe he'll be a reliever, maybe he'll be this, maybe he'll be that. He doesn't throw baseballs. He gets hurt. He's made of glass. So I hope it works out. He's a member of my favorite team's organization, so I want nothing of the best for him. But yeah, he's a hard one to look back on for me in terms of people were saying they shouldn't put him in trades. They shouldn't put him in trades. And I'm like, nah, they probably should have put him in trades if he slipped completely out of that list. Savage being in the top 10 doesn't really mean anything to me because he's untouchable and he's on the team. So when they do these prospect lists with guys, like I get why he's still on it, but he's not really there. But so now they have two other guys, JoJo Parker.
And Namala. Namal is at 62 and JoJo Parker's at 66. So, and Parker was their first round pick, 8th overall last year. So pretty impressive spot for him to debut there.
Yeah.
And then Namala, of course, like you said, has been around as one of the top prospects for the Jays for the last few years.
I think, listen, man, it's great to have prospects. And it'll be awesome if two of those guys or both of those guys end up someday playing for the Blue Jays and being contributors. And you can quote tweet me and go, look at this idiot who said trade one of them. But that's my real feeling on having prospect depth is not about, unless you're right on the doorstep, like Trey Savage was last year, where he kept rising through the ranks and it was like, go, 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 go. And even there was a moment for me, I think probably even did it, where when they were like, hey, the Jays can get Joe Ryan. And I went, yeah, you throw Trey Savage in there. And now I'm like, thank God they didn't. Oh, my God, what a mistake that would have been. That's why I'm not a prospect evaluator. And honestly, in terms of these prospects, I'm reluctant to like weigh a heavy opinion on these dudes because I don't watch them. I don't know anything. I look at their baseball reference pages like everybody else, and I try to get more informed by asking people like Jeff Ponce, who cover the team on a daily, what they think of these guys, or reaching out to people who cover the Blue Jays or within the Blue Jays to try to get a feel of who they really love. But I don't know anything about this, like nothing. But to me personally, you want to have a deeper farm system, especially in a contention window, so that if the opportunity arises to add a real impact player, you don't feel like you're completely all in on guys, or that you can at least be competitive. Because last year at the deadline, if you do recall, the talking point around the Blue Jays was, yeah, they're not going to be able to add Joe Ryan because they don't even have enough pieces to be able to get that deal done. You went, oof, that's not a place you want to be, especially considering I'm not crazy about the Red Sox and Yankees off seasons. I really like the Baltimore Orioles off season. But the one thing that is sort of looming with both of those teams is they have some prospects that have been rumored in trades, and the Red Sox specifically because they got a lot of younger starters, where they can augment their team through trade. And it doesn't really feel that way with the Toronto Blue Jays even still. And now with Bo Bichette's departure and Andres Jimenez being your shortstop, you're trying to look towards, hey, what could be in the next 3-4 years. Hard to envision a scenario where you're happy trying to give up one of those two guys, whoever you do think is going to be your shortstop of the future. And I don't know if either of them, like guys end up being shortstop prospects that don't play that way out in the bigs.
For sure.
But either way, my guess is there's one of those guys they do not want to part with, and that the other one, they're looking at it and going, if the move is right, absolutely.
Yeah, it gave me an interesting thought of how real contrasted this offseason has been with last year, where they were coming off a tough season. Vladdy and Bo
brutal.
Exactly. And there's so many questions around who was going to be signed. Now it feels like there's a little bit more of a solid understanding of what you're looking at going forward. And like you said, you have a bit of a group to kind of rebuild in the farm, which you didn't have, it feels like, coming into this year either. So
there's definitely more positive momentum about the farm system than there have been in the most recent years. Yeah. And Trey Savage hitting, Addison Barger, if he is who I think he is and who a lot of people hope he can be, those are two massive hits for a group, frankly, that was taking it on the chin in terms of the way that they were developing players. So, yeah, what's next?
Big event tonight, and I'm not talking about the Leafs. We've got climber Alex Honnold, who was the first man to ever free solo the Yosemite Mountain or in National Park.
Yeah, they made he's the documentary guy, right? Free
Solo it was on Netflix, I think, back in 2018. And he's coming back to Netflix to scale the Taipei 101, which is the tallest skyscraper in Taiwan. He's going to do this without any harnesses, going to free solo it. And they're going to show this live on Netflix tonight, 8 o'clock. Are you going to tune in, or I think you're probably pretty busy?
No, I'm not going to tune in, not just because the Marner thing. I'm squeamish with this kind of stuff. There's two things on the internet that I can't do. One is the people who do cave diving, where they're squeezing themselves through tight spaces underground, and I'm like, I'm not lying. I've had nightmares where I'm in that situation where you're just stuck and you can't move. And I'm sure you've seen the videos where they're doing it and they're trying to like pop the shoulder. They got to have people who are panicking and they're telling them to relax because that's the only way they can move through those tight spaces. I'm even talking about it right now. I don't know if you can see, I'm uncomfortable even thinking about this. And I'm mad that we're talking about it because now it probably will end up in another nightmare for me. This is how this thing works. Disgusting behavior. I feel like you don't value life if this is what you're doing. But the free solo stuff is the same thing to me where, okay, am I impressed at people trying to push the boundaries of their capabilities? Sure. Do I understand there are adrenaline junkies out there and that there are people who are not just pure cowards like me I wouldn't even go up 10 feet on that thing. Like, that's too high for me. 5 feet? Sure. Max. That's where I end. What kind of bothers me about this being live on Netflix, it's as Dennis Reynolds would say, it's the implication. Yeah. You're watching that live, not because you're impressed with the feat, because you think he could die.
And I would say more people probably want to see that, not necessarily want him to die, but
I can't say more people.
People want to see crazy stuff.
But that's the stress of people watching it, where they're watching and they're like, he doesn't have a harness, he's going to be doing this thing. And to me, it's like, that's sicko stuff, dude. I don't like that. I really don't. That's too much for me. The idea that it's live, that's the implication, is anything could happen, and that the anything being one thing. There's no, and he might not do it. He might give up. It's, no, he could die. And that's disgusting that this is where we're at. Sorry, I don't like that it's live. If it was just, hey, he did it, and we filmed it, and you played it after, fine. The idea that you're doing this live, it's for one reason and the one reason only, and this is, I don't like we're trending there. Okay.
I like the marketing of it. It's a good idea to try to get people, like you said, kind of excited, and it's something you don't see on television. And it has an opportunity for something that could obviously go incredibly wrong. And
but guys, why would we even tune in live? Can't we just see it on TikTok? I could literally go and watch every thriller video I want. Like, why would I do appointment viewing for this? I don't get it.
I'm guessing, I'll bet you it's going to do good numbers. I do, because I think people, again, will tune in for the sicko factor. But if you're watching it live, I think it's the sicko factor purely. Like, truly and utterly just sicko factor. It's not for me. It would make me feel squeamish the entire time. I'd feel sick. I'm like, listen, I like horror movies, but it's a movie. It's like the spooky, scary ghost that scared me, and I get that little bit of adrenaline rush when I'm watching it. Like, I understand the appeal of those things, but not when it's an actual human life involved. And no, not for me, dog. Anyways, we'll see you tonight after the game for Leafs Talk, and then Monday.